Welcome to Unscripted with Russo. I'm your host, Ashley Russo, president and executive producer of The Peak TV. For our podcast, we decided to explore the people behind the narratives. I'll introduce decision makers and influencers who are winners in their field and find out the intimate story behind their rise to success. Hey everybody, welcome to Unscripted with Russo. I am here with George Wacker, Lehigh Valley With Love. George, you're known for a lot of things around the valley. Some we can talk about, some we can't.
Well, I will tell you, this is definitely unscripted after the first couple minutes in here. So this is great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. For people who don't know you, can you give me a little bit of a descriptor of who are you, kind of what's your background, what do you do?
Oh, geez.
And we're going to jump back in time.
All right.
So give me
we'll do this. I currently I'm the owner of Lehigh Valley With Love Media, which is essentially a boutique social media and PR firm. We work with companies in the Lehigh Valley to help them out, obviously, with their social media and PR. You know, some of the ones you might know are the Bethel Mary School District, Downtown Art Museum, Molly's Irish Pub and Grill. We could actually talk about that because we did a lot of fun stuff with them. So I got started, Lehigh Valley With Love got started because of the blog. If some people might be, familiar with the Lehigh Valley With Love.com, which was it still is a satirical blog where we take news in the area and make fun of it. Which in
and of itself is such a brilliant idea. I mean, really, that was so innovative and like just something that hadn't been done here before. And in some ways, to me, I thought it was like a real kind of tipping of your hat to the Lehigh Valley, saying like, you've arrived. Like if you're big enough and doing enough cool stuff that you can be made fun of.
Right. So one of the things that we always get, not always, but people comment, they're like, Lehigh Valley With Love, not a lot of love here because
But it's all love, right?
Well, it is. I'll try to explain it. So like it was kind of the sense that, if we live in the Lehigh Valley, then we can make fun of our stories. So you and me, we can make fun of our stories, but if you're from Scranton,
don't come here and make fun of our stories.
You don't get to make fun of it. Tongue-in-cheek, fun. And the Lehigh Valley With Love title is kind of like letters from the Lehigh Valley With Love.
Sure.
And in the beginning, it evolved. It's still evolving. But in the beginning, it was very much just like police blotter stuff because we knew people liked it. And I wish I could take responsibility for the whole idea. But I saw national blogs and websites doing this. And I said, this is 2008. I'm like, we could do this here. Why not try it? And we did, and
people responded.
The rest is history.
That's great. Well, before that, tell me a little bit about yourself. So, where did you grow up, and what was your family structure like?
Sure. Okay. Wow. I didn't know we were going that far.
Yeah, we're gonna go way back.
Let's do it. All right. I was born in Carbondale, Pennsylvania.
Which is where?
North of here.
Is that like Wilkes-Barre area?
Yeah. Well, I always do this. You can't see it because we're on air, but if you hold up your hand and kind of put your thumb there, it looks like the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So this is Erie, where my thumb would be, and my pinky is Philadelphia. This makes sense if you're like looking at it. Anyway, we're here, and I grew up here, which would be like my pointer finger near the border of New York, in a town called Honesdale.
Okay.
It's right next to Lake Malpaupack. So I spent my.
Oh, well, that's a nice place.
I spent my summers
on
the lake.
Now I have. Okay. Right. Now you said something I know.
Yeah, Honesdale. It's a beautiful town. It's like 5,000 people. It's the birthplace of the American Railroad. It's the first place a steam engine was ever run on tracks in America.
You're kidding.
No, it's actually in the Smithsonian. It's called the Stourbridge Lion. And it was funny. How do I remember all this? So Horatio Allen was the guy
How do you remember all this?
They taught us in school. It's like the only good story from the town. But he drove it, and they drove it from like Honesdale for like 2 miles, and then they got to some sort of bridge, and the train steam stack was too tall to go under it. So that was it. It was like a mile thing.
The strange little connection, which is that my grandparents had a farm in Jersey that ran a steam engine.
There you go.
From New Hope to Flemington.
Yeah, I mean,
it was that kind of thing. And the back of the farm was the tracks. So the farm is named the Iron Horse Farm because the steam engine was called the Iron Horse. So
and we were the.
It was fun. We used to just take this train like 2 miles. We thought it was the greatest thing we ever did.
They still do it. I want to take my daughter.
They do it in Jim Thorpe too, right?
It's like an hour and a half away from here, but they do like the Santa train ride.
Oh yeah, she's 3 now.
And they used to do like the robber train ride. Anyway, it's a beautiful town to grow up in.
What kind of kid were you? Like how many kids in your family? What was your?
I have an older brother who's 10 years older.
Okay.
I have a sister who's 2 years older. He lives in South Carolina now, and my sister lives in Portland, Oregon. She's in education, and he is like in charge of the county, whatever county Charleston is in. He's in charge of like all the drug rehab.
Oh, wow.
For the county.
Okay.
There. And we had a good family. I mean, my dad is still alive. My mother passed away in 2010. My dad actually lives in Bethlehem now, which anybody who has a kid can kind of, when I moved away from Homestead, it was such a small town. There was a lot of me like, I just need to leave here. I think most graduates of small towns kind of feel like that sometimes. And for me, it's silly. It was Bethlehem. Like I came here.
Bethlehem was like the big city.
Well, I've been all over, like I've traveled the world, but I wouldn't say the world. I've been to like Europe and a couple cities in the United States. But for me, Bethlehem was just, when I came here to go to Moravian College, it was just somewhere that I really connected with it and enjoyed it. And I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's kids who are like, I want to get out of Bethlehem, but for me,
I guess every town has that probably. What were you like as a kid? Like if you were to describe 7-year-old George, like what were you? Were like a whirling dervish? Were you like very studious? Were you a comedian? What were you like?
I was a little bit of trouble, but not. I was curious, and I like to like kind of push things to see how far you could go. Like, what's the limit? Okay, but I feel like I was smart enough to be like, okay, there's the limit. I know where
and not cross that line.
And now I can always go back to that because I don't know. I mean, I had a lot of fun.
It was like calculated risk.
My childhood was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Did you play sports, music? What
actually,
was your
the
thing?
reason I came to Moravian College was because of track and field.
Really? I didn't know that. Okay. What particular events?
I was recruited by Coach Mark Will Weber at the time, who is a New York Times bestselling author. He still lives in Bethlehem. Mm-hmm. He was actually on our PBS show. He's a great guy.
Awesome.
He'd be a good interview for you guys.
He would be a good interview for us.
But he recruited me for cross country and track, and I was mostly running, longer distances. But in college I ran mostly the 800 and 400.
Wow. Okay. So you were serious about it.
Yeah. I mean, it was Moravian College isn't D1, but participating in athletics or some other extracurricular in college or in high school definitely helped me get through school. It just kept me disciplined, I think. Mm-hmm. So for me, participating in those was definitely very influential and helpful for me to, at least my academic career.
When you look back, what were some of the lessons that you kind of took away from that experience of track and field and being part of a collegiate team?
It was fun. I mean, I'm still friends with a lot of people on the team. For me, it was, you're coming from a smaller town, again, Bethlehem, but we say this, and even my co-host on our podcast, the Lehigh Valley With Love podcast, Tyler, I'm guilty of it. Everybody's guilty of thinking the Lehigh Valley is so small, But
it's getting pretty big.
There's almost a million. If you say metro area, there's like, 800,000,
I like the million. I feel like that number, I don't know.
Until we hit it, I don't want to say it.
I know, but we're getting big.
But that's kind of the point. So going back to that, like for me coming from a small town, even it was 20 years ago, still being in an area where I'm exposed to, people in college from all over. Yeah. Moravian does, it's mostly
we're working on a project on their international student thing. But which is cool. It's really amazing.
I was exposed to a lot of awesome people, and I would, recommend, maybe running isn't your thing, but whatever you're interested in, for me it was definitely helpful to have that kind of keep me in line.
Do you have any hidden talents? Anything you did in high school or in your life that's like a hidden talent or something strange you participated in?
No, I don't search for my YouTube, but I've always been a musician, I used to run an open mic. The open mic scene is probably still good in the area, but about 10 years ago, I was doing a lot of open mic stuff, so I definitely have the musical bug, but it's not something where I'm like pulling out my acoustic guitar at the campfire. Like I'm not that guy, but I really enjoy. I enjoy it. I had a band in college.
Or you take lessons, or self-taught, or?
I mean, self-taught to a degree. I definitely worked with in college, and then after college, there were people around me who definitely taught me stuff, but I definitely learned some things on my own as well. But yeah, so if you did find my YouTube, you can go down the rabbit hole, and there's some
stuff.
Honestly, I'm proud of it. It's fun, and it's something too. Having a 3-year-old is harder now than it maybe was to like you're just gonna pill up the guitar and play and stuff.
What
It's
was
not
it?
as
What
easy.
what kind of like sparked that? Was it like a middle school?
I just
it's
love
cool
music.
To play the guitar.
Like Pearl Jam came out when I was
Yeah.
like 10, so I was listening. I remember this, and I don't mean to like knock anybody's musical preference, but I asked my dad like, "Get me this record." I was like 9. I'm like, "Can you buy this at the record store for me, a cassette tape?" And he's like, "Okay." So he gets it and he brings it back. He's like, "Who's this band?" I'm not gonna name him because it doesn't matter. But he's like, "This is weird music." And then I remember like looking at it and thinking, you know what? I think he's right. It's time for me to move on to adult music.
Yeah,
and then,
at like 10.
well, I don't know. Like my brother was 10 years older than me,
Right.
so I'm
that's
always,
true.
whatever.
True.
He's listening to Metallica and Rat and these
Shit.
hair metal bands, and then
Yeah.
it's like for me, I was, when you're younger, you're listening to a lot of different pop and whatever. So I got into Pearl Jam, and from there you just get into a million different bands, and that's why I was interested. And there are a lot of people in my town, believe it or not, of my age who are kind of similar in that interest in music. So
I
it was
love that.
fun.
I think it's so incredible to have some sort of artistic thing that drives you.
It's nice
yeah,
to be
my
able to, like-
husband's drummer, and he would say, "Please, I'm not good. You can't identify me as that." But I'm like, "Yeah, but it's a part of you, and it's so."
Like, I don't want to be the guy who
yeah.
pretends I can't play. Like, I can play,
Yeah.
but I also don't want to be the guy who's like, I'm going to come to your house.
Right.
That is annoying. But it's just fun. And it's nice to know that, I have a skill that maybe my daughter might want to pick up and I can help her get started. Or maybe she wants to.
It's also something you can enjoy for the rest of your life.
Sure.
Like something that, music is always with you. All right, well, George, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about your adventures in the last decade, where this entrepreneurial spirit has taken you, and learn a little bit more about your podcast and what's coming up next. So we'll be back with George Wacker in just a minute. Home to the Iron Pigs in Dorney Park, Allentown is a city without limits. Food, art, dance, you name it, it's got it. Allentown's historic roots are matched with its vibrant culture to create an adventure that you'll never forget. Thinking of taking a trip? Follow Lehigh Valley, PA on Instagram, and you'll find attractions, hotels, and sites you won't want to miss. Welcome back to Unscripted with Russo. I've got a great, fun guest here today, George Wacker, Lehigh Valley with Love. George, tell me a little bit about Lehigh Valley with Love. Where did this come out of? I mean, you're over 10 years now, right? 11?
Yeah,
pushing 12 years?
We started in 2008. And I say like we because the company now is myself and my wife. But when I started out, I was working you have to understand. So I have an English degree from Moravian. I thought when I came out of college in 2003 that I would be a writer. Like I'm just going to be, I mean, obviously I wrote a ton, I still do. But I just thought, that's what I'm going to be. So I was a journalist for a little while. I didn't, that's not the writing I wanted to do. And eventually got into PR because I wanted to be able to buy groceries.
Yeah.
It's good, to get paid money. Journalism, obviously, at the time wasn't especially entry level, it was tough. So I got into PR, and then I'm like, I still want to write. So I started looking for some outlets, what blog can I do? And the first one was, it's going to be living in the Lehigh Valley, like a 20-something. So like 20-something in the Lehigh Valley, and the blog website's going to give you all these cool things to do. And I wrote like 2 blogs, and they were horrible. And like no one's ever going to read these.
It's a good idea, though.
I mean, it was maybe at the time. I was 27. So like what happens when you hit 30, and I'm closing in on 40. So then what happened, So I found a story about there was like a coyote that was rabid in the area, and they were trying to find it, and finally they found it, and it was this long story. They cut off its head, and I did a funny story on it where I included the actual news source, and I sourced it back to like the Express Times or something, and then I wrote my, reaction to the story on the top and the bottom, and I started just doing it for the first year. I think my dad read it. And then we,
But then he said, like, to his friend,
I think my dad's like,
yeah.
he's like, nobody read this, it's bad. But then finally we started a Twitter account making fun of the Bethlehem area mounted police. But we didn't say that we were a police officer. Well, we did, but we said we were an equine police officer. So we started a Twitter that pretended we were a horse cop, and we said some really bad stuff. But meant to be fun. It was way over the top, but you would obviously know it was over the top.
right.
We got a cease and desist letter from the police, so we told the Morning Call. The Morning Call did this big article. NBC 10 comes up and does an a big thing. And that's kind of where we broke, so to speak. And for the record, we're very good friends with the Mounted Police Unit now, and we've always been. It was just like a funny thing.
Do you feel like some of these ideas that you've had have been ahead of their time? I feel like maybe you're getting there though. You're catching up to me.
I don't like to say that kind of stuff.
Catching up to me. You're almost old now, like me.
But it seems so.
No, but I feel like you say that when you talk about starting a blog about 20-somethings living in the Lehigh Valley, right? Mm-hmm. And you go back, whatever that was, a decade ago, more,
sure.
More.
12, yeah. I mean,
12, 30. That's ahead of its time. I mean, that is a concept that now you'd say, oh, well, look how many millennials live and stay in the Lehigh Valley, and look how many young people are. But I don't know that, to me, it feels like you were one step ahead of what was coming.
Well, I think if that's the case, then it goes back to really honestly believing that the Lehigh Valley deserves and is large enough to have some of these things. I feel like some of the, and I can't, say it for certain, but I feel like some maybe companies or media companies, they hold back a little bit when they could be innovating. They're saying, like, what's New York doing? We'll just copy that. We'll just copy that.
Right.
I'm not saying everybody, because
sure.
there are insanely talented people who live in the Lehigh Valley and do way better work than we could ever do. But I'm just saying that I think that's where our kind of viewpoint is helpful, because we feel like the Lehigh Valley is just as big as anywhere else. So that means a viral video could work here. We did the Molly's Tide Pod shot at Molly's. We didn't think, oh, well, it's the Lehigh Valley, who cares? That Molly's Tide Pod shot, if you're not familiar, we work with Molly's in Bethlehem on the south side on 4th Street. It's a college bar, so we made up a shot that looked like a Tide Pod shot, because all the college kids were eating them. They weren't really, but it was just a thing. So we made it look like a Tide Pod. It got over 6 million views nationally, and it's a local Lehigh Valley thing. Right. So we just I don't believe that the Lehigh Valley is small potatoes. And I think that helps us when we're doing some things, because we don't think that. We're thinking we can go as big as anywhere.
What I love about that, George, and I think what resonates with me and us getting to know each other over the years, is that idea of that collaboration of like all the, all ships rise in a rising tide. And like, I truly, truly believe that. I think we're all taking it from different vantage points maybe, but I always felt this idea that like, why do you have to go to a big city to get quality X or quality Y? Mm-hmm. I just never believed that. I thought, gosh, everyone I meet here seems so talented and smart and educated and all these things. Why aren't we doing it here? And now it's like finally happening. People are doing it here.
I think one thing you can look at is the beer scene.
It's incredible.
A block from here, you have
Lost Tavern.
Lost Tavern. And and I don't even mean just the brewers, but like the beer scene in general, where there's so much variety in the Lehigh Valley. It's mind-blowing. Yeah. Like, you can get so many different things. I was just out. The only other place that I'm sure there's beer connoisseurs who would tell me differently, but I was out in Portland, Oregon for a week, and it was obviously bigger and they had more, but it was very similar into like what's going on here. So again, I feel that way. I feel
love
like
that. And
collaborative.
I think that we also seem to get together in this region and this valley around community things. Mm-hmm. So like, there's a ton of arts and entertainment. There's a ton of nonprofits doing amazing stuff. And I feel like though by kind of rallying around that scene, it's helped elevate the whole region. So what role has that played, community, in your success?
It's been huge. I mean, for us, definitely the hardest part was being taken seriously. When people are reading some Lehigh Valley With Love stuff, especially early on, they're discounting me. They're like, this guy's a joke. It's horrible writing. It's all this sort of stuff, just to whatever. And then we're just, we continue to do stuff until you can't ignore it. And now we feel like, with somebody like you, I'm here right now as an owner of a company that was initially started in Lehigh Valley 10 years ago that was scoffed at, to where now we're doing, I'm sure I'm going to see you at different events throughout, the fall and the winter. And the fact that there's so many people that I'm affiliated with, who have relationships with, in like Arts Quest, the Bethlehem Area School District, like I said, even the Allentown School District, all these people who are doing incredible things in the community, the fact that we can be a part of that is great. And I also feel like, you talked about collaboration. If you are, I think I brought up the beer thing. I lost my train of thought for a second, but like with Lost Tavern, like they're not necessarily, are they competing against Brewworks? Sure. but the rising tide can, if everybody loves beer and we all come downtown and we're enjoying the place that we live in.
Yeah, I think
that's
the
that
same
kind of thing. There's there are some great leaders in this area. I'm kind of rambling, but I feel like, to be associated in a part of some of them is definitely helped us.
Yeah, and I think that you look at something like food trucks, right? Like that's
Yes.
another one. It's like, instead of competing food trucks, like how can we have a food truck festival? And hats off to Arts Quest that.
Well, it's funny because
you've been a part of a lot of those events that have sort of pushed the envelope, changed the conversation. Instead of having factions, it's more like, let's all get together and draw attention to this one thing. What's
even like there's for what we do, there's hundreds of companies in the Lehigh Valley that we could possibly work with, so
Right.
why not collaborate with a competitor? Even, you know what I mean? Like I feel like there should be more collaboration. We can work together to do cooler things.
Someone said to me once, and I actually think it was Marta Countess from Countess Communications, and Marta said, because we're friends, and she said, my feeling is if everybody in the Lehigh Valley, every business was doing the amount of marketing and media that they are going to need to do to be competitive, we're all going to be swamped.
Sure.
So she's right. And so when, everybody that puts out a good podcast, a good marketing campaign, a good social media campaign, a good video, to me, it's saying to the next company X who's not really doing that yet, they go, shoot, how do I get in that game? Right? Like that's sort of what's happening, I think. So it's kind of cool.
I agree. And it's fun. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't super exciting, but
It is.
I'm glad to be a part of it and just
Yeah.
in it and see
Yeah,
what
yeah.
happens next.
So tell me, what is like the mission of Lehigh Valley with Love? It's unfolded, I guess, in a like fairly non-traditional sense, but
Yeah.
now you've got this great business. Your wife is involved; she's your business partner, and what do you?
One of the things that is in my Facebook thing is like, let's make the Lehigh Valley beautiful. I think I said that once, and it doesn't mean something very deep as much as I think, what we're trying to do, even though sometimes it might not seem like it, is we're trying to show people that the Lehigh Valley deserves what it has and what it's going to get. So the Lehigh Valley is big enough to have, people doing funny videos, or it's big enough, like if you're at the Lehigh Valley Mall, maybe they're doing a video shoot. It's big enough for these sorts of things. And I think Lehigh Valley with Love, especially in what we do with our podcast, with Lehigh Valley with Love Media, or Lehigh Valley with Love podcast, is to showcase the things kind of the same way that you're doing it. And we're really happy to be a part of that. And we want to continue to try to help other brands share their story and our kind of niche a little bit. Obviously, we do any social media possible, but we definitely do try to push the envelope a little bit. So if people are looking to try something maybe a little bit risky or a little bit different.
Yeah, like a brand that wants to get a little bit out of the box. And
a little
try
bit. Like if
something
you're a little bit comfortable with that, we can do anything. But if you do want to push it a little bit, we're more than happy to come up with some stuff for you.
What is your favorite thing to work on? Like with all you've got a lot going on. So of all the stuff that you work on, and I know you're passionate about your work and you pretty much love your job, but what really like gets you excited?
You know what
makes
it is,
you giggle?
Mal? I was just, because we work with the Bethlehem Murray School District, and I was taking photos, and for me, photography has always been kind of neat, and there's so many friends. I would say Matt Blum is one of the big ones for me. He lives in Allentown. He's a photographer and artist. And my other good friend, Chris McGinnis, who works for Olympus, they've helped me become a better photographer. So now, I'm really excited about photography because I never had that bug up until 2 years ago. Even after, I'm good at taking photos. I think cell phones make it easy for everybody, but to actually get, a little bit better at photography. Right now, that's a lot of fun for me, and I'm learning from those guys and other people as well.
That's cool. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, I want to hear all about your amazing daughter,
Okay.
your future plans, and we're going to do some rapid fire questions. So stay tuned, guys. With George Wacker, we'll be right back. Any time of year, the Lehigh Valley is an exceptional place for food, drink, and entertainment. Whether you're cooling off from the summer heat at Dutch Springs or shopping for just the right kind of gift at Chris Kindle Market, you will make memories all year round. For more information on what the Lehigh Valley has to offer, check out Discover Lehigh Valley's website at discoverlehighvalley.com. All right, guys, thanks for coming back with us. I'm with George Wacker here today, Lehigh Valley with Love. George, thank you for being here.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
It has been an interesting, awesome, and I'd say non-traditional journey to this point.
Sure. Yeah.
And now you're the
for me.
father.
Yeah, which is crazy.
So tell me about your beautiful daughter and your wife and your family life.
Having a kid,
yeah.
I'm sure people, it's the best thing in the world because it's just, it changes just the way that you perceive the world for me. I know people, it's very cliche. Like you see it through your
it's
child's
totally
eyes,
true.
But it's like we will now go to things that I've been to a million times. Like here's a good example.
Totally different.
Like Mock's Goot, which is on Linden Street in
Yeah.
Bethlehem. But that's like it was near our house. That's like our go-to restaurant. And we spent a lot of time there in our 20s and our early 30s. And now it's our daughter's favorite place. And when we go there now, it's like, this is Dahlia's spot. And she wants to go there. And it's just so cool now to experience being there in that way compared to like how you were there in your 20s.
It's like you get to live life again in
It's
a
so-
totally different way. And
been-
even like holidays or, like you said, like places you've gone or you've gone past and then they stop and they get that like wonderment in their eyes and you're like, what?
Yeah, I mean, I know kids aren't for everybody, but I'm fortunate and blessed to be able. So she's great. Like it's fun just to do random, silly, everyday stuff. So.
Describe yourself as a dad for me. Like, what kind of dad are you?
Oh man, I'm the pushover. I'm the one she runs to when mom said no. However, I do definitely try to be the dad that I'm like, hey, I'm not just gonna let you get away with anything. We have to talk it out. But I'm definitely not like the stern. I think my style is more collaborative. I mean, I'm not. I'm not gonna try to be her best friend, but
Yeah.
I want her to maybe understand things instead of just saying no because
You're
I
describing
said,
my household because my husband will say, well, I'm gonna go talk to them about it. And I'm like, why are we talking about it? Like, we said no. Do we have to have a discussion?
It's like you don't negotiate with terrorists, but
Yes.
I will. I'll negotiate
do
with
it.
her. I'm
Yeah.
like, you're having a bad day. I don't know. I mean, obviously, as any parent
No,
knows,
I like
you
that
can't,
too. Yeah, it's
You need to have timeout has to exist,
Yeah,
and you
you
can't
gotta
do
it.
You can't finish everything with a rational because they're not
No.
really rational. But it's been great, and I'm learning from my wife because she knows what she's doing, and without her, absolutely none of this could work.
Yeah.
So
awesome. I
you
love
should
it.
probably be interviewing her instead of me.
Well,
I mean, it's
based
just
on
like-
what you just told me, I can fill in the blanks. 'Cause
she
I'm
is the
mom, I
reason.
get it.
My wife Crystal is definitely the reason why we're able to even operate. So
Crystal, major shout out to you and
Yes.
moms everywhere. How has being a dad changed your perspective on your business and kind of what you want to do?
it's definitely made me look more long term. So if you asked me at even 30, like, oh, are you worried about investing? And I'd be like, no, I'm worried about next week.
Right.
One of the first things we did was start like an education fund for her like right away. So whenever we get money for birthdays, or it's just you put them right into the account. She can use that when she's 18. She's gonna be really mad though. I hope she listens to this because the money we have in there, she can only use for education. If she wants to be like a deep water welder, she can do that. If she wants to go to college, she can do that. But she can't buy a new car with it. So she'll
Yeah,
be-
but we just
mad,
found out that if let's just say she's like a genius or sports, which she might be, and she gets a scholarship,
Then she
and
can
then that
take-
might.
yeah.
No, but you know what? Then you can use it. So my husband has decided that if my
What?
kids
No,
don't use
it's
their
bad.
education
It's
funds, that he might go back and do
I hope
something.
they don't listen to this podcast
No, I'm
because
just
now they're
saying.
gonna be like,
No, not well.
she can keep it.
It has to go to education, but you could do
Yeah,
anything.
but it's fun. Like that kind of stuff, I never would have. It wouldn't even have crossed my mind. Planning out which pumpkin patches we're gonna visit. Like this is something I'm doing this week,
Right.
and it's not. It's funny, and I think I'm gonna get over it by like she's 3 now. So by the time she's 4, I'm gonna be like over this. It's so silly because I'm a dad. Like I'm a dad, and that's
No.
just how it works.
Sorry.
No, it's
I
still
don't think
gonna be
so.
silly.
I think you'll feel like because each stage brings something cool. Like they're in
Alright,
this
yeah.
great stage now, but then all of a sudden they learn to read, right? So like
True.
6, 7, 8 is totally different. Like they can read the signs when you drive,
And
which
you're
is a
still
whole
like, that's
wild
crazy.
thing. You're like,
wait, you can read
Can you
that?
believe? Can you believe they read this sign?
But even going back to talking about the Lehigh Valley in general, we live near Moravian College, and I'm a graduate, which doesn't necessarily matter. But I plan on taking her to a couple of the women's soccer games at Moravian because you can just go up there and sit on the hill and watch them play. And the fact that we can walk to that and walk to Main Street, Bethlehem, it's just really it's something to look forward to as a dad. Like, I know that we're going to have so many opportunities to go do all these fun things that we don't even have to get in a car to do.
I love that. It's so awesome. Kids give you so much to look forward to, for sure.
It's great.
Speaking of looking forward, what is next for Lehigh Valley with Love? So tell me a little bit about, you've got the podcast with PBS. You're going to go to a second season, which is super exciting. So congratulations.
Thank you.
What other things are you hoping to accomplish? What's short term? What's long term? What does it look like?
Sure. I mean, in terms of an actual business, we've only been a LLC since 2015. So I'm still relatively new to this. We grew pretty quickly. So this year we're kind of getting in a nice holding pattern to you don't want to grow too fast. You don't want to do too much. So we're really looking at some possibilities coming up. We want to make sure that the stuff that we're putting out is fun, and we don't want to, I talked about the Tide Pod shot. I don't want to be like talking about that in 5 years. I want to be talking about what we just did.
Yeah.
The next thing. So we're really excited to, I don't want to say duplicate that type of thing, but replicate the success of it. So we'll be moving in the future to, look for new interns and possibly new hires. I mean, that's not something that's right now, but it could be in the future. It's weird because I don't want to say this is my vision, because I've learned that a lot of it happens organically, and then you wind up there and you're like, this is great. I mean, you need to have a plan, but I like seeing things through organically.
Yeah, people ask a lot about vision, I feel, like, especially when you're building a business. I've been asked that question a lot, and like there's an element of, I don't want to call it a vision. I feel like it's like I have an idea, or I have some things I'd love to accomplish. I'm not always sure how I'm going to get there. I don't know exactly what that's going to mean for like staff or whatever. I mean, Dakota's sitting in the room. She's our producer for the podcast. She's a sales grad. She's super talented. She does everything. And she came in, and with a film background, I said, listen, I kind of need somebody to help with some digital producing, and are you open to kind of learning that and working with me? And I didn't know I'd have this person in my life, and you've been amazing. So shout out to Dakota. But you just don't know where your business is going to take you.
And for somebody like Dakota too, who's in, I'm assuming your early 20s, the Lehigh Valley 20 years ago for somebody in their early 20s was, I can't, I'm not a financier or anything. 20 years ago, I feel like the environment was a little less exciting than it is now, where you live in a world now where we don't need that 9 to 5. There are some people coming out of college who can start their own business in the Lehigh Valley without ever having to maybe go that traditional route of, I have to go get a job right out of college.
Well, and also, I actually have seen it just in the...
Or even within
our years in business, which is now we're going over 8 years. Mm-hmm. I think that when we first started hiring, the desire was like, I'll stay here for a year or two, and then I'm going to move somewhere like where there's a real media scene. Mm-hmm. And now they're actually seeking out opportunities to use their degrees and their skills to stay here and make like a life.
The market's pretty big. I keep saying.
Yeah, but again, that leads me right back to Lehigh Valley Love, because your vision, and I know we both decided we don't love that word, but really was ahead of its time in realizing that the Lehigh Valley had so much to offer, but everybody else needed to kind of give it that same, I guess, like,
I'm sure, like,
and love,
somebody like Don Cunningham would disagree with you that I was the first person to say.
I didn't know if I said the first, George, but no.
But no, I mean, there's been, I was definitely, maybe it was a visionary in the sense of saying, I feel like this area deserves it, and I'm going to double down on that, and I got a lot of criticism, and I'm like, what, I feel like this is going to be something that people are going to enjoy. And I doubled down. I trusted myself, and it worked, to some degree. And it's just been an exciting journey. So.
Well, I think it's pretty amazing. And having kind of, watched a lot of the journey from afar, and then getting to know you better in recent years, I love what you're doing. And I think it's so important to the area. Too. And we're just thrilled to have you here, thrilled to have you in the area. We'll collaborate anytime.
Yes.
Seriously, we love that.
Like you said, you got to come on our podcast now.
I'm going to do it.
Quid pro quo. So.
All right, perfect. Before I let you go, I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions. For the audience, he has not heard these questions.
I haven't.
So we're ready.
I'm nervous.
All right. What would be the superpower you would choose if you could have one?
Invisibility.
Invisibility. Oh boy, that's sneaky. That's a sneaky answer. All right. What is your latest television Netflix binge? Do you binge watch shows?
The Boys on Prime.
The Boys on Prime.
On Amazon Prime.
What's it about?
Basically, if Superman was a sociopath.
Oh, that's scary.
It's very violent. It's very graphic. It's not for everybody.
Okay.
But
But you love
It's,
it.
it's on Amazon Prime. It's like they're big. They've been showing
Okay.
commercials everywhere.
All right.
But yes,
Oh, that's too scary.
we watched
for me,
it
I
and we
think.
were terrified, but then we watched all the episodes.
What would be your number one bucket list destination somewhere you've never been?
Iceland.
It's a hot spot right now.
I see so many of my friends traveling
me
there on
too.
Facebook, and I'm like, that looks so much fun.
Me
I'm
too.
going.
How
at
about
some
those
point.
hot springs? That seems just like a cool concept.
I'm in. Like
Yeah.
Iceland at some point, 100%.
Okay. Are you a Halloween person, and do you have a favorite Halloween costume?
I am a Halloween person. It's funny you bring that up because we were planning out how we're going to be trick-or-treating. Again, this goes back to the dad thing. We're planning how our trick-or-treating is going to look in our neighborhood already. And what's my costume?
Well, first of all, will you divide and conquer? Like, will one person stay with candy and
Yes.
one person go out
We
with
live
Dahlia, or-
in the area by like Liberty, where parents will drive their kids into that neighborhood because there's so many people.
Yeah, you
and
have
I
to
think
have a lot of candy.
but I love it. Like
Yeah.
there's moms who are really mad about it. They're like, those kids shouldn't be here. I'm like, everybody, come
So
on.
we lived not in a neighborhood, but we lived near a neighborhood, and the big deal was that it was a cul-de-sac kind of situation,
that's
or a
how ours
circle or
is.
whatever,
Yeah.
and they would close it down, and everyone who lived in the neighborhood came out and would have drinks along the way. So you would put your kids in wagons, and we used to walk the wagons. I'm just saying, you could get a whole thing started. So there'd be outside somebody to have like Rice Krispie treats, and the next one would have like Jell-O shots.
Well,
and the next one, I'm not even kidding. This was a whole scene.
We literally are going to have a projector
Yes.
outside
Yes.
with a screen showing like, I don't know, we haven't figured
Some
that
kind
out,
of
but like some
fun-
sort of Halloween-y stuff. Like that's how deep we're
Now
going
I
to go.
think I know where I'm coming on
So it's going to
Halloween.
be fun, and we'll have candy.
Do you actually celebrate on Halloween? Because that's the whole thing. You know, I'm from Jersey, and we celebrate on Halloween, but in Pennsylvania, it's this whole like Friday night before,
It's
Sunday before.
whenever the trick-or-treat day is in Bethlehem. I'll have to look that up.
All right,
but-
well, we have a good Halloween parade in Hellertown, so you'll have to come bring
I'm
your
in.
daughter.
Hellertown
Come
is
hang.
great.
You know what we do? We use our porch. We do a party.
Hellertown is like the next, I
I
feel.
think so too.
This Main Street,
love it.
it's like what, 4 miles long. There's some really neat shops.
many
I was just
cool
looking. Wings on
storefronts.
Main just opened.
Yes.
I would say if you had to put money on it, Hellertown will be the next, like, if they can get out of their own way, it'll be the next one.
And then someone will say I was innovative for moving my
There you
business
go.
here.
I think you could be.
Who knew?
You could be.
Who knew? All right. What's the last? Oh, one thing you would bring on a deserted island.
A plane to get off? A boat? What? That would work.
I love it. Good answer. All right, and now we get to turn the tables. If you can ask me one question, what would it be?
What?
I know you're not
You told
prepared.
me that. Okay. What is like one way you see some companies using video non-effectively, ineffectively? This is the right word.
Companies using.
Is that?
That's a good question, actually.
I don't even know if there's an answer to that. Maybe I can come up with another.
I mean, no. I mean, I think the answer is they're still stuck in the long format methodology, and they think that like they can make one great 5-minute video and sit on that for like 5 years. And just like I have seen our contracts and what we're advising clients on has changed so dramatically. So to me, the main thing is, first of all, one is just not using it at all. Like you can't avoid it anymore. Or two, putting like all your eggs in this big video basket of like one big long format thing. It's really hard to talk people out of that. But it's a waste.
Well,
It's
I
just
think
a
it's
waste of the
too.
resources.
It's that we were so growing up. Myself, probably you too. Even I'm talking to Dakota, probably even yourself as well. That TV is like 30 minutes, and
Right.
these things should be 30 minutes long,
Yeah.
or at least 10.
Well, we struggle with the peak TV all the time because we don't really make the show. It is technically a 30-minute news magazine, but we don't make it for that purpose. We actually make all the pieces, and the
That you
pieces
can
get
promote.
used all over the place, right? Every different sort of whatever.
Hey,
from-
don't give out too much
Okay, I'm just
free
saying.
information, but no, that's a great strategy.
And then we push it together and make the show because there is still a faction that's important. So you can say like I'm on TV,
Oh, that's a
but
big
it's not
thing.
necessarily the driving. So it's interesting just to see the way it's all shifted, and I like the fact that it's always moving. It's like an ocean and unrest.
It is
you know?
depressing and full of. I am full of anxiety sometimes when you just said like starting to feel old, and I am a little bit. So like I have to like constantly try to read up on everything that's going on because it's the same thing. It's like if you don't adapt and innovate, that's it.
That's right. You got it. You heard it right here with George Wacker, Lehigh Valley with Love. Follow him everywhere. Listen to the podcast. Check out the old YouTube channel. Go down the rabbit hole.
boy.
It sounds like it's
She
good stuff.
remembered?
I did.
Don't. All right. Thank you guys so much for having me on. Seriously, this is great.
Thank you, George. I appreciate it. Good luck. Can't wait to see what we do together next.
All right.
All right. This has been Unscripted with Russo. Till next time.